Hi, I'm Connie from Prosperity Finance, sharing the best financial tips so that you can be more successful with your financial goals. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Louis Lim. Louis has been working in the valuation industry for over a decade. He has a vast experience, not just in residential property valuation, but also in commercial valuation as well. He's currently under DROC. He joined the company since 2017. His primary focus is on industrial property. But before that, he worked for Bailey's for a number of years. So he's really experienced valuer. In today's episode, I invite him to talk about what is the main difference between how the commercial property are valued versus residential, so that you can have a clear understanding, and if you buy or sell commercial property, you can get some insights as opposed to just use a GV or sales comparison. So let's welcome Louis. Hi, Louis.
Hi, Connie.
Thank you for thank you for joining us. I know you're quite busy. Louis, as we discussed earlier, we have quite a few residential investors, but at the moment, the way to build wealth is really difficult given the property market is flat. So I've got a lot of property investors now looking to divert into commercial property investing. But a lot of them are entry level in terms of commercial investing, and they not really understand how the commercial property are valued. And sometimes they thought, government valuation or sales comparison, which is the common approach with the residential valuation, and they use that to put a price tag on the commercial property. But okay. I know in reality it's not the case. So you are expert. Can you just share with us how the commercial property are valued and what are the major difference between the two property types in terms of valuation?
Okay. For commercial properties, the primary value is driven from its ability to generate income. So for commercial property, the main two drivers of value is the rental as well as the yield. I think in your previous guest, Michael Chen from James Law has sort of touched on it. So I suppose we'll start from the very top. For commercial property, as a valuer, firstly, when I go up on a job, I would determine firstly, how big is it? How big is a commercial property? Because once we determine how big it is, we then is able to determine how much rental is capable of generating. So in Auckland, we typically valued the potential for rent on a per square meter basis. So once we determine rental value, the next thing is that we will determine what should that property return as a what's the capitalization rate or what is an appropriate return for that property. So once you determine what the rent is and then you apply the rental return, that will give you the value for the commercial property.
So Louis, why we can't just use a sales comparison or just government value to value commercial property? Is it quite close to the government value or can be quite different?
Like residential property as well, it can be quite different. The purpose of a government valuation is fairness. So I would be very surprised if a government valuer has ever been to most of the properties. It's not physically possible. I value primarily industrial properties, and in industrial properties there are office and then there's also warehousing space. So it is near impossible for a government valuer to know how much office or how much warehouse space there are in that particular building. So that is where inaccuracy can happen. I think we should step back a little bit. So commercial properties are also derive some of its value from the tenant. Most investors is also buying a lease. So part of the value is determined by how good the tenant is, who is the tenant, and bluntly speaking, how likely is the tenant going to stay in business and keep paying you rent? So it's about the amount of rental and the durability of rental, and that is where it becomes an art form. So not when you buy commercial property, you're buying the potential for rent, and you're also partly buying into the tenant.
Right. So are you saying, Louis, that if the property is vacant versus another property, very similar location and size, but that is occupied, they will have a different value, right?
Vacant building will sell less than a occupied building, a leased building. However, in Auckland, again, I will limit myself to industrial properties. So industrial properties, there are low value or entry value properties, and then you've got the middle one, and then you've got the big ones. So what happened is in Auckland, we had acute shortage of available properties. So in the more, I don't like to use the word affordable, but in the lower range value, you've got a lot of competition. Listing level and available stock is really low. So there is actually almost no difference between a vacant and a leased one, because there's just not a lot out there, and you could lease it out fairly quickly in current market condition. But when we go up to the higher value, the bigger the building, the harder it is to lease out, and that's where it's more like that discrepancy, you're more likely to see it there.
Right. There's a number of factors that quite unique to commercial property where residential doesn't. For example, the size of the commercial building, and if they are in the lower end or large end, and also the tenant's quality and the lease term and occupied or vacant. So they all drive the value. So we can't simply rely on a government value, which they don't really consider those factors. I guess they just make
yes, that's correct.
Yes, so it's not apple with apple. And engaging a profession like yourself, you can consider all the factors and provide really up to date kind of a market price and help either the seller or the buyer, I guess, understand the true value of the property.
If they are interested in investing in commercial property, I think in Auckland we are very blessed with we've got a lot of high caliber and very capable commercial real estate agents. The likes of Bailey's, Barfoot, Colliers International. We're lucky that a lot of our commercial real estate agents are very, very qualified, very capable. So if I would advise as a first step for any of your listeners who are keen into investing, learning about commercial real estate, the first port of call is to drop into, Bailey's, Barfoot, Colliers International. I'm very sure they're more, they have got a lot of advice to share, and they're happy to help.
Yeah, that's also a good tips, Louis. Thank you so much. I think a lot of our audience actually doesn't know commercial valuer is actually quite different from residential valuer. Because that require a lot of special skills understanding commercial property, which is far more complex than residential. So if you are interested in buying commercial property and you want to understand the value of the property, I think it will be best to approach a commercial valuer like Louis. And he also does residential from time to time. But you got to engage the professional, not residential valuer. Also, what's different, the way we approach valuer in terms of to meet the mortgage requirements that residential property we have to order from bank nominated system, if you like. So there will be a random valuer who pick up the job, but of course they all kind of a paneled valuer because they're all part of the system. However, with the commercial, actually there is no such restriction. Instead, the bank actually have a list of valuer. Probably depends what kind of building and the location, and normally have like probably 20-something names we can choose from, and Louis actually one of them. So make sure if you need to get a commercial valuer, make sure they are paneled. Louis is that he's really responsive, always return a call if he's busy, and his turnaround time always fast and efficient, on top of his real experience, of course. So if you are thinking of getting a commercial property valued, please feel free to get in touch with Louis. You will find his contact details below. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, Louis.
It's my pleasure, Connie.
Yeah, and if you find this video is useful, please feel free to share with your family and friends, and also please subscribe of the YouTube channel and WeChat official account. Until next time, have a good day. See you. Bye, Louis.
Bye.
Bye.